In this video, we'll talk about the two psychological effects involved in making decisions of how to reopen schools. The first is risk aversion. The second is diminished sensitivity. Before we get into the two psychological effects, let me provide some context of this decision. Recently, there has been a lot of debate over whether to reopen schools for face-to-face instruction. Some districts have decided to do so, while others have decided for online learning or a mix of both. In March, when there was only a few COVID-19 cases in the state, most districts were closed for the rest of the school year. For example, in Georgia, governor ordered the closure of all public schools on March 17 when there was 43 confirmed cases on that day. Now, we have over 3,000 confirmed cases each day. For example, there were almost 4,000 cases reported on August 1st in Georgia. According to the data you see on the screen, the pandemic has gotten worse. But why to close schools in March when we had less COVID-19 cases, but reopen schools now when we have more COVID-19 cases? The decision of whether to open school amid a pandemic is unprecedented to all district leaders and school board members. There is no precedent that leaders can use as a reference point. And there are many convincing arguments on either side, ranging from the quality of instruction, the development of students' social and emotional skills, the learning needs of students with disabilities, students' access to the internet, and the challenges for working parents. More important, we still don't know how the pandemic will continue to unfold. So there is a lot of uncertainty in decision-making. Here, we focus on two psychological effects. We start with the effect of anxiety and fear on decision-making. Anxiety is an emotion triggered by uncertain outcomes. Back in March, even though there were much less cases than we have right now, the unknown virus in the United States created a lot of anxiety and even fear. Fear is an emotion triggered by the perception of danger and threat. The emotions of anxiety and fear make people risk-averse in decision-making. Anxious and fearful people are less willing to take risks. This explains why the decisions were made to close schools in mid-March when we had about 40 cases reported each day. Leaders were not willing to put students and community members' lives at risk. The second psychological effect involved in the decision of school reopening is the diminished sensitivity. People have diminished sensitivity to a constant stimulus. This psychological effect is also called sensory adaptation. It is like the story of the boiling frog. If a frog is put suddenly into boiling water, it will jump out. But if the frog is put in tepid water, which is then brought to a boil slowly, it will not perceive the danger and will be cooked to death. The frog has diminished sensitivity of gradual changes of water temperature. We humans also have diminished sensitivity to our environment. In the case of COVID-19, since March, people have been forced to adapt to new norms. You may have stopped tracking the report of new cases each day. COVID-19 has become part of our daily life. We have diminished sensitivity to the threat and danger posed by COVID-19. In the case of deciding whether to open schools amid the pandemic, decision makers diminished sensitivity to the threat and danger posed by COVID-19 could explain the decision of reopening schools even when we have more daily cases than we had in March. Diminished sensitivity can be explained by how our nervous system works. Dopamine neurons in our brains have decreased sensitivity to a constant stimulus. Recall how excited you were when you received your first paycheck. Did you have the same level of excitement when you received your 20th paycheck, especially when the paycheck had the same amount of the first one? The lower level of excitement you felt was because the dopamine neurons became less sensitive to the paycheck. So dopamine neurons in our brains have diminished sensitivity to a positive stimulus such as a paycheck. What about a negative stimulus such as a stressful event like the coronavirus pandemic? Do our dopamine neurons have diminished sensitivity as well? The answer is yes. Recent research suggests that after a stressful event, we develop a sense of new normal within a matter of weeks. The image you see here shows the pattern of how our nervous system responds to a constant stimulus like the coronavirus pandemic. In March, when we were first hit by the pandemic, we had a heightened sensitivity, and then this sensitivity reached a peak. As the time went by, the sensitivity has diminished, and we have developed a sense of new normal. We may think that we can go back to normal only when the stressful event goes away, but we are actually more adaptable to negative stimuli than we think. The diminished sensitivity of our dopamine neurons to a constant stimulus gives us a sense of new normal within weeks. So, risk aversion, which was triggered by the emotions of anxiety and fear, explains the decision of closing schools in March when we had less COVID-19 cases. And diminished sensitivity to the threat and danger explains why some districts decide to reopen schools for face-to-face instruction when we have much more cases. These two psychological effects of risk aversion and diminished sensitivity were actually proposed by prospect theory. This is a classic theory of decision-making under uncertainty and risk. I'll create a different video to discuss prospect theory in detail. In this video, we talk about two psychological effects involved in the decisions of school reopening. What are other psychological effects in this decision? Please share your ideas in the comment section below. In the future, I'll create more videos about decision-making, particularly leaders' decision-making from psychological and neuroscience perspective. I'll see you next time.